I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right, all my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts. Welcome to the Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today. We've got a really, really awesome show for you here today on the Sunday edition. Thank you all so much for being here. Just a little bit later on in the show, yes, it's another appointment with our friend, Dr. Jeff. Yeah, Dr. Jeff Pierce will be joining with us here just a little bit later in the show. And we're going to talk all about blue zones today and what gardening can, how it fits into these different blue zones around the world that we've learned about. So it's going to be a great conversation. You're going to want to stay tuned for that coming up here a little bit later on in the show. We've got our good friend David from Bowtie Life coming up here for our In the Garden segment coming up here in just a few minutes as well too. And yeah, here real quick at the top of the show, we got a roll call coming up. We want to make sure everybody's getting in on this here at the top of the show. So definitely let us know that you're here. Let us know that what you got growing on, where you're growing from, all that sort of stuff, so that we can make sure we give you here a shout out here in just a few minutes here on the show for our new roll call segment as we're moving forward here in 2026 on the Let's Get Growing show. So right on, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Let's go ahead and click that like button real quick, thumbs up, subscribe, bell notification to be notified of all of the upcoming live streams and shows, and share with all of your friends. Let them know that you got Let's Get Growing show here on the Urban Gardener channel. We got great conversations each and every weekend here. So definitely let your friends know that we are your 3-day gardening talk weekend here on the Let's Get Growing show here. As always, Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And that'll be about 7 p.m. for those of you in the UK, and 3, 4, 5 in the morning around there for all of our folks down under in Australia as well. But we're also here now, again, like I said, 3-day weekend, Monday night as well, Monday evening, The Green Room, our new show this year with our good friend Natalie from the Fresh Princess as our co-host, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Definitely come and join with us for our new show on Monday. Let's give a big, huge shout out to all of you who are joining with us on the replay. Thank you for joining with us here. And again, just like those who are here live, get down into our comments. Let us know you are here. Let us know what you got growing on, or just drop in and say hello. If you're here with us, though, again, live, join the conversation. Like I said, we got roll call coming up. And later on, as we get our guest, Jeff, with us here as well, Dr. Jeff with us, drop in some questions for him. We're going to be talking blue zones today. And this is one thing I wanted to mention, too, about questions and everything. Drop in whatever kind of questions you want for Jeff. We're going to be talking about blue zones. So any sort of blue zones questions that we're talking about during the conversation, we'll be dropping in during the conversation. We'll get those to Jeff. Anything outside of that, and please ask questions if you want to. We got the doctor in the house. We'll get to those towards the end of the conversation for all of you as well, too. Just to kind of let you know how the conversation is going to go just a little bit here in the show. And let's follow all the links down below to Dr. Jeff and everybody else here, too. Also, too, you want to follow the link down below in the description for our sponsor, Ivy Organic. Ivy Organic is in their annual, this year, I guess they're calling it the Free Fruit and Plant Scion Giveaway. So this is something they do every February. They have a giveaway. It's been like fig cuttings and different things in years past. But every February to get the year launched, our sponsor, Ivy Organic, puts in a free giveaway and all of that too. So definitely go and check out the link down below in the description to our sponsor at Ivy Organics, and go check out how to get entered into their giveaway there, so you can get yourself some free plant scions as well too for yourself. Also, you'll see during the breaks, we have these new snapshots of the week talking about some new things we're doing in 2026 right now. Snapshots of the week. This is where I want to feature feature all of you. Another way that we get to participate with you and the audience on the show here. And what we want to do is show your gardens off. We want to get some pictures of what you've got growing on, whether it's you got started as the season's getting going, just all sorts of stuff. Do you have a plant pet or a garden pet that you have out there with you at all the time? Maybe we'll get some snapshots of them, all sorts of stuff, whatever. Just give us some snapshots from your garden. Send them in to us here at the Urban Gardener at mail.com here, right on the screen there for you. The Urban Gardener at mail.com. And I want to see all these pictures showing up in our mailbox here so we can feature those on our upcoming shows during our breaks. So again, thank you everybody for your contributions. I look forward to seeing everything growing on in your gardens too. So right on, everybody. So great to be here again. We're still really just getting this whole new year going here. We got lots of great stuff coming up here on Let's Get Growing, as well as some really awesome shows we've already kind of gotten to here on the show as well too. Did you join with us yesterday? Yeah, yesterday you, the audience, were the guest. It was our first community show of 2026. It was really fun. These are just really awesome shows, especially for a live stream show like this is just really cool to be able to connect with our audience on a level like this that we've been doing with these community shows here throughout last year. And it was just so much fun. We're continuing them into 2026. And this year we've got our good friend Jay, our facilitator in the chat, joining with us as our live co-host for our community shows. And Jay and I both had a really great time hanging out with all of you. We had David from Bowtie with us, and we had Joe from Muddy Puddles Farm in there, Robin from Robin Gardens, Big Will Dog came in and joined the house as well too. So it was really awesome to get to hang out with all of you who hang out with us each and every week in these community shows. We'll try to get another one out here coming up in just a little bit down the road here for us, but we'll make sure we get a nice announcement of that and let you all know ahead of time so that you can make sure that you can come in and join with us on these community shows. But definitely go back, check out yesterday's. It was really fun. We had a little flat cap fun in the house yesterday. It was really great. If you didn't get a chance, though, too, to check out last week, check out our conversation with Destin, Noah, Texas garden guy, and our conversation with Sean and Allison from Spoken Garden. That was a really fun show, as well as our Sunday edition with Christopher and Kang. Really awesome to hang out with those two there again to catch up with what they've got going on and see what they'll be growing in 2026. And then again, like I said, we've got our green room, the new show Monday evenings with Natalie and I. We had Joe Lample on with us last Monday, and really fun conversation with him. Joe was a little late, we'll say that, but it was all right. At least got him in the house. That's why the show's just a little bit longer. So if you want, you can kind of fast forward right up to that conversation when Joe gets in there. And we had a really great conversation with him. So definitely go and check that out as well too. Right on, everybody. I hope all of your gardens growing well, and I hope everything's getting started for this new year for you guys, all of that. I'm just kind of myself when it comes to gardening, and what I'm doing is I'm still kind of catching up from some things going on this last year. So my garden plans are still in the works. I'm getting some stuff planned out, getting ready to go, because things are going to start warming up here real soon. We've moved now into February. It's February 1st for us now. So again, we're just several weeks from spring showing up here. The days are getting longer. So the excitement for this upcoming garden is just growing more and more every day. I'm getting really, really excited here. So we'll get our garden plans going and getting everything going. I hope that you guys have all been able to get things going for yourselves in your gardens and get things started up, get some seeds started, all that sort of stuff as well too. And again, too, depending on where you live, I know some of us out there are still covered in snow and there ain't much going on, but hopefully we're able to get some things going on indoors to, get a jump start on some things if we can, right? All right, everybody, let's go ahead and jump on into this here. Let's go ahead and get into our new roll call.
My name is Kevin.
Yeah.
That is my name.
Yeah.
They call me Kevin.
Yeah.
Because that's my name.
Roll call.
All right, all right. Let's jump into the chat and let's say hi to folks who are joining with us here at the top of the show. And of course, we got our friend David from Bowtie Life. He'll be in our In the Garden segment coming up here in just a couple of minutes. He's got some good stuff for us today. And then Coach Chavi, awesome. Great to see you, Coach. It's always awesome to see you in the conversation, as well as, of course, our facilitator and moderator, Jay Dixon, joining us from Ontario, Canada. Keep an eye on the conversation for all of Jay's links and information on our conversation as we get going along here. Croc Gardner in the house. Good to see you. Great to have you here with us. Thank you so much for being here for our show today. I see Adam, our other moderator here, joining us, and says, "Hey, Dave, I hope you're staying warm and snowy in Florida." Yeah, no doubt, right? Exactly. Kevin, awesome to see you. Great to have you here with us. Robin from Robin Gardens joining us from Chicago. She says it's 26 degrees Fahrenheit. That's minus 3.3 Celsius. Feels like a dream after the long cold snap. Yeah, that still seems pretty cold, but not. Yeah, you're right. It's not as cold as it's been. Dusty, thank you for being here. So great to have you here on the show with us. It's awesome to have you here in the chat. Thanks for being here. And as well, we've got Cat's Tiny Wannabe Homestead. Hello from 8,000 feet in 5A. Where are we at? Sangre de Cristo Mountains, Colorado. Oh, that's way up there too. Nice. 8,000 feet. Right on. Big Will Dog. Indianapolis is cold and sunny this afternoon. Yeah. Like I've said before, too. Just some of those cold places, it's those sunniest days that can get really cold. All right, Eddie. Great to see you. Hello. It's great to have you here with us. Shavi says, just got to my micro tomatoes and dwarf tomatoes started yesterday. New patio garden this year. Oh, those micros are great for patios. I grow micros in my back carport patio garden space back there. The last like 2-3 years, we've had like this really great what was it? Red Robin we had last year. We had Orange Hat the year before. But just they're actually really great. They're really delicious, small, compact tomato plants, perfect for small pots and container gardens, patios, all that sort of stuff. But awesome, Chavi. And let's see here. A friend's trying to get our friend Doug over at the Croc Garden monetized. Okay, yes, everybody go and show some support for Croc Garden over there. I see Janet in the conversation as well, too. Right on. Thank you for being here. Excellent, everybody. Awesome to have you all here. I hope we didn't miss anybody in the conversation. And again, great to have you all here. And like I said, it's David's turn. I got to get this ready, actually. Let's do this here. It's David's turn for In the Garden this week. So let's see what David's got in store for us this week. All right, it's time for In the Garden.
Hi, friend. I'm Bowtie Dave, and I want to start off by saying thank you to Enoch at the Urban Gardener channel for including us in this month's Let's Get Growing. It's always an honor to be here, and I truly appreciate the space you've created for practical conversations about growing and living well. Today, I want to talk about something very simple, very accessible, and very powerful when used consistently: ginger. This segment comes from a longer video that will be coming out on Bowtie Life, where I take a deeper, slower walk through the topic. For today, we're going to focus on the heart of it: how small, regular steps with something as simple as ginger can support your health without overwhelm. If you're finding yourself wanting to go deeper, I'd encourage you to go over and follow along in Bowtie Life when the video comes out. Let's get into it. This jar right here replaces 5 things I used to take every day. Not overnight, not dramatically, just consistently. And that's why I want to show you exactly what's in it and why it works. Today I'm starting a fresh batch. I'm going to make it from start to finish right here with you. And as we go, I'm going to explain why each of these ingredients earned a place in this jar. I want to be clear about something right up front. This isn't guesswork. This is the results of lots of shared research, work I've done alongside my good friend Geppetto. Take what's useful, leave what isn't, and always listen to your own body. Before we start cutting anything up, I want to slow down just a little bit, because where these ingredients come from matters. The turmeric and ginger you see here came right out of our own garden. Not a store shelf, not a supplement bottle. Soil, time, weather, and patience. The lemons came from a neighbor's tree, literally just a few feet from our property. Same sun, same rain, same sandy Florida soil. Now, to be clear, the one thing that didn't come from our garden is the black pepper. These are the whole peppercorns, and I'll be grinding them fresh. And that matters because black pepper helps turmeric do what it does best. We'll look more into that science a little bit later. Now let's talk about the honey. This is raw, unpasteurized honey. The good stuff. This came from our good friend Jeff over at Local Destin Honey. I absolutely love this honey, and if you're local and want some, you can find him at the farmer's market on Sunday mornings in the parking lot out in front of Beals, right here in Destin, Florida. Some of that honey actually came from our own bee boxes. Raw honey isn't just sweet, it still has the enzymes. It hasn't been stripped down. It plays a real important role in this whole process. None of this is about perfection, it's about connection. Knowing where your food comes from, knowing who grew it, and building something simple on purpose. Now let's talk about why ginger earns that daily spot. As I start peeling this fresh ginger with a spoon, this is my favorite way to do it, by the way, because it saves the good stuff. You want to understand that ginger is one of the most studied medicinal roots we have. Ginger contains compounds called gingerols and shogaols. These are responsible for its anti-inflammatory effects. They're also why ginger has such a strong reputation for helping digestion. Humans have shown ginger can help reduce nausea, motion sickness, upset stomach, even nausea related to medical treatments. It's also been shown to help with muscle soreness and general inflammation. Not as a quick fix, but as something that works when best used consistently. And that's the key word here, consistently. This isn't about megadosing, it's about showing up day after day with something gentle and effective. As I get this ginger into the food processor, I'll mention one thing toward the end of this recipe. We'll be adding a small amount of hot peppers again this year. Just enough to complement the ginger, not compete with it. All right, now we're getting into the golden stuff. This is fresh turmeric. And if you've ever handled it before, welcome to the part of the video where everything I touch becomes the color of a traffic cone. Turmeric stains. It's not a flaw, it's a warning label. I'm going to process the turmeric in the same way I did the ginger, thin and small pieces, lots of surface area. Because the more surface area we create, the more the honey can extract. And we're putting it in about similar quantities to the ginger. Now here's the big idea with turmeric. Turmeric contains a compound called curcumin. Curcumin is one of the most studied natural anti-inflammatory compounds we have. And when people talk about turmeric helping joints or helping inflammation, curcumin is usually the reason. Here's the important nuance. A lot of studies use concentrated curcumin extracts. But what I'm doing here isn't trying to mimic a capsule. It's building a food-based ritual. A small amount every day and over time. That consistent input can still matter. Now let's talk about the part that people miss. Curcumin is notoriously hard for the body to absorb, which is why black pepper is not just optional seasoning for me. It's strategy. Black pepper contains pepperine, and pepperine can dramatically boost curcumin absorption. In some reports, by up to 2,000%. That's 20 times. That's why you'll see turmeric and black pepper paired together in traditional foods and in modern formulations. So for this quart jar here, here's my practical recommendation. I'm going to add about a half a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. If you really love pepper, you can go up to a full teaspoon. If you're sensitive to pepper, start lighter, because you can always add a pinch to your spoon when you take a dose. So yes, this year I'm excited to ferment turmeric and honey, because fermentation isn't just preservation, it's transformation. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this supports me day by day over the next year. All right, let's talk about lemon. And this time, I'm slowing down a bit. I'm pulling out the mandolin for this and eventually moving to a knife, not because it's fancy, but because it's precise. I can control the thickness, I can get consistent, beautiful slices, and I don't mind this being beneficial and beautiful at the same time. Now, lemons bring a few really important things to this jar. The most obvious one is vitamin C. Vitamin C plays a key role in immune support. It's something I've been intentional about for a long time. I've taken supplements like vitamin C and quercetin, and I've found them helpful. What I'm interested in now is layering that support into food, not replacing everything overnight, but building it into something I already enjoy. And then there's the balance. Honey is sweet. Ginger and turmeric are warm and earthy. Lemon cuts through all of that. Palatability matters. If something tastes good, you'll keep taking it. If it doesn't, it becomes another forgotten jar in the fridge. This is about building something you look forward to, something you'll actually use. All right, now everything comes together. This is where the jar starts to look like something. Honey is not just here to make this taste good. It's doing real work. This is raw, unpasteurized honey. That matters because raw honey contains enzymes. It still has antimicrobial properties, and it creates an environment where fermentation can happen safely. Honey has been used for thousands of years as a preservative. Long before refrigerators, long before labels, it slows down harmful bacteria while allowing beneficial processes to take place. As I'm pouring this in, what I'm looking for is coverage. Every bit of plant material needs to be submerged. That's part flavor, that's part food safety. Now let's talk fermentation for just a moment. When you combine fresh plant material with honey, natural yeasts and bacteria begin to work. They slowly break things down. They produce small amounts of gas, and over time, flavors soften, deepen, and change. That's why I use fermenting lids. These are silicone pickle pipe style fermenting lids. I bought this kit years ago from Haas Tools. It's a wide mouth jar kit, and it's absolutely worth having if you plan to ferment anything at all. Here's what makes them special. There's a small nipple on the top with a tiny hole. That hole allows excess gas to escape while keeping outside air from getting in. So you don't build pressure and you don't invite mold. I prefer the wide mouth jars. They're easier to fill, easier to stir, easier to clean. Now back to the honey itself for just a moment. Honey has been shown to help soothe coughs and sore throats. It has natural antibacterial properties, and when used as part of a ferment, it becomes a carrier. It helps deliver everything else in this jar in a way that's gentle and palatable. It isn't fast food, it's slow food, and honey is what makes that possible. Before I seal it up, I'm adding in the peppers. This year, that's a few Scotch bonnet peppers and several peppadew peppers. The peppadews add color and a little sweetness. The Scotch bonnet brings some heat. And here's something interesting. After ferment, the peppers are not nearly as hot as they are fresh. The heat softens, the flavors spread out and soak into everything else in the jar. Now the lid goes on. This is the fermenting burp lid we talked about earlier. And finally, labels and dates. Trust me on this. Future you will be very grateful. From here, the waiting begins. Over the next few days, microbial activity ramps up. Tiny amounts of gases are produced. Flavors start to soften and blend. You can start using this after a week or two, but for me, 4 weeks gives the best flavor. Deeper, more integrated, worth the wait. And here's an important part. There's no right way, no wrong way, no right timeline, no wrong timeline. I've heard folks start eating right away. I've heard people letting it go 2 or 3 months. This is completely about taste. Experiment, pay attention, figure out what tastes best to you. because the version you enjoy is the version you'll actually use. Once this ferment is ready, let's talk about how I actually use it. Last year with the ginger, I kept it simple. I'd grab a fork, take a couple pieces off the top, and that was it. Nothing fancy, just part of my day. With this batch, I plan to use a daily spoonful. That's it. And I want to really emphasize this part. Start small. You don't need much. This is not about more being better. Everyone's body is different. There are contraindications. This isn't for everyone. If you're on medications, if you have medical conditions, or if you're unsure, checking with a healthcare provider is always a good idea. Test things. Pay attention to how you feel. Adjust. After the ferment is finished, I take this quart jar and divide it into 2 pint jars. I've found that pint jars work better for me. They're easier to move around the fridge. They fit right in the door. And if I see it every day, I'll use it. That's part of my ADD brain again. Setting things up so success is the easy option. This setup didn't happen overnight. It's the result of years of experimenting, adjusting, and, paying attention. Once the ferment is gone, as long as you want it to go, it's time to move it into the fridge. This is where things slow way down. Cold temperature doesn't stop the ferment completely, but they do calm it. Flavors stabilize, texture settles, and everything kind of finds its balance. Long term, this ferment can live in the fridge for months, maybe even a year or more. Pay attention to it, smell it, look at it, and trust your senses. This isn't about exact dates. It's about awareness. If it still smells good and looks right, it's probably doing just fine. As we wrap this up, I just want to step back for a moment. These jars don't come from a store. They didn't come from a label or a shelf. It came from soil, from neighbors, from bees, from patience, and from time. It came from paying attention, from doing something small, consistently, and letting nature do what it's always done. That's gardening, and frankly, that's life. Not everything has to be perfect. Not everything has to be optimized. Again, thank you, Enoch and the Urban Gardener channel for letting me share this with you. If this conversation about small, regular steps resonated with you, the full video will be coming out on Bowtie Life, where we take this a little deeper and a little slower. Until then, remember, progress beats perfection every time. Your garden doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. Have a blessed day, friend.
Ivy Organic was founded on the gardening concept of whitewashing, simply lightening your plants to better tolerate weather extremes, transplant shock, and so much more. Such a valuable gardening practice that farmers have been doing it since BC times. However, in recent years, most research has been caring for plants and trees using latex and tar-based products which are designed to last 100 years, but fall off your plants within 1 to 2 years as your plants grow, contaminating your garden soil indefinitely. Available in colors white or more natural looking colors such as brown, green, gray, and grayish. Ivy Organic has 2 general categories of whitewash products. The 3-in-1 Plant Guard, which includes 7 natural oils including castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint, which offer insect and rodent repellent protection, and the whitewash oil-free formula. Both products also have diatomaceous earth in the base ingredients, which naturally offer some insect repellent protection too. As always, keep growing with Ivy Organics, and wishing you all happy gardening.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Here we are. Awesome, David. Thank you so much for your tutorial on ginger and all of that on our In the Garden segment. Thank you so much. Definitely check out a link down below. Go and find David's channel there and check out his full version of that conversation coming up on his channel as well too. So right on. Thank you so much. And also too, real quick here, I know I did just mention to you all about what we had growing on here this last week on the show. I do want to mention real quick here that coming up here in a couple of weeks, it's going to be our monthly gardening book club. That's right. We have our monthly gardening book club each and every month on the third Sunday of the month. And this month we are featuring Willie Galloway's Veggies for Breakfast. This is a really great book. It's actually more of a cookbook than what we've done here on the Let's Get Growing Show book club so far. There's been recipes that have been intermingled into some of our books before, but this one's just really awesome, really great, and just gives you a lot of good information and recipes on how to use some of that stuff that you're harvesting out of your garden and put it into the most important meal of the day. And then also, too, again, I want to mention we have our new show, The Green Room, Monday evenings here with our good friend, our co-host, Natalie from The Fresh Princess, joins with us each and every Monday now for our Green Room conversation. This is where we're extending the conversation from our shows on the weekend into Monday evening. Your new 3-day gardening talk weekend here on the Let's Get Growing show for sure. So definitely come and join with us tomorrow night as we have our good friend and Saturday trivia contributor, Brandy from the Suburban Gardenista, is going to be joining with us for the conversation, along with Michael Overstreet from the Garden Nerd. And yeah, that's going to be great. We're having so much fun with this new show. As I mentioned earlier, we had Joe Lample on with us this last Monday. Really great, really fun. We're just getting things going. So like I mentioned earlier, Joe kind of showed up a little bit later, but we still got in a really great conversation with him. So just fast forward a little bit in there. We stayed a little bit late on the show just to make sure we could get a good talk with him in there too. So definitely go and check out our new show, The Green Room. So, all right, everybody, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while because you know what? It is just really awesome every couple of months to be able to have this guy on with us and to talk all about gardening as medicine. Really awesome to have been able to connect with him a couple of years back at the National Heirloom Exposition. And it's been really awesome to have him join us on the show every couple of months to talk all about stuff. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about blue zones. All right. Let's go ahead and welcome to the show our good friend and Dr. Jeffrey Pierce. Thank you so much for being here. It's so awesome to have you back on the show, Jeff. Thank you for being here. Uh-oh, we got to get that mute button real quick.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, man. It's always great to talk to you. And I've been really looking forward to this conversation since you mentioned it as a possible topic, because I love this topic. This is something I've just been really fascinated with, over the last couple of years or ever since I really started reading about it. And then I saw the Netflix documentary that they put out and everything, just really, really fascinating. So I had to go back and rewatch it too for this conversation, because what I wanted to do was, again, we're talking gardening here, right? This is a gardening show, and we're talking about how important gardening is into all of this sort of stuff. But I wanted to rewatch it with gardening in my mind as I'm thinking about each of these different topics and these different things that they were talking about and all of that. And just, it made it even more fascinating. You know what I mean? Even since some of our conversations we've already had in the past now, we've had conversations on mobility and different things as well too, and I just so much. So we're going to dig all into that. But real quick, Jeff, how are things been going? How you been doing? I mean, were you getting through the winter all right down there?
Oh man, yeah, we're really suffering. It was no, we here in Zone 9B in Northern California, an hour north of San Francisco, beautiful Sonoma County, and we really do have it pretty easy compared to what a lot of the folks in the U.S. have been experiencing this year. So we're very thankful, and we're sending warm wishes to everybody who is still in minus digits and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's a pretty day to day, and things are waking up. Excited to see we're getting swelling buds on a number of
Ooh.
our stone fruit, and it looks probably in the next day or so some of the apricot flowers are gonna open up, and so life's pretty good, I gotta say, and thankful for the opportunity to get out in the garden.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're getting some swelling in your fruit trees. I don't know if I've quite seen anything yet,
Hmm.
but I'm sure, as I was mentioning earlier in the show too, things are gonna start warming up real quick here.
Yeah.
So I'm sure any day now they're gonna start showing as well too around up here as well. So that's always exciting because it's that and some of those first like flowers that start popping up and everything, in the early or late winter, early spring that really just start to get things exciting. It's like, okay, things are ready to grow now.
Yeah. It's an exciting time of year. It's all, even after we've been doing this for such a long time, still seeing a seed pop out of the ground or a dormant fruit tree start to wake up, it's still amazing. And
Hmm.
we're not sure if it's going to happen every year. And every year it happens, it's like, here we are again. It's just the beauty of nature. We're so lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's really, really great. So, all right. So, real quick, everybody, we've got Dr. Jeff Pierce with us here for our Sunday conversation. Gardening is medicine, but today we're talking blue zones. So, if
Mhm.
you have any questions about blue zones during our conversation, we'll try to drop those in during the conversation. If you have any other questions for Dr. Jeff, though, too, in general, we'll save some of those towards the end of the show, but definitely put those in the chat there for us so we can mark them and have them ready, and we'll get some questions in with him at the end of the conversation as well too for everybody. But right on. Okay, real quick here, let's get this quick. It's not really blue zone in there, but let's get this in real quick so everybody knows. Where is Jeff gardening from?
Hmm. The town that I live in with my family is called Santa Rosa, and we are near downtown. This is Zone 9B, an hour north of San Francisco. Like I mentioned, we're near downtown. We have an urban plot, but we have converted just about every space available to something edible almost.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do a combination of annual and perennial veggies. I focus on primarily. I focus on the fruit, so we've got trees and bushes and vines and all that kind of stuff. From the usual to the unusual. I try to stretch the zone and get away with some things that most people don't try. And so, trying mangoes and papaya and banana and avocados and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
just to keep it interesting. And if the weather's
Delicious.
unseasonably warm, it works out. And if it's not, then the deciduous trees are appreciating the chill hours. So we kind of have, depending on how you look at it, we have enough spread of things that no matter what the weather, something's going to do good and something's going to do bad, and it kind of evens out.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. All right. So let's go. Here's a good question to get this conversation started for us here. Muddy Puddles Farm joins us from the UK. And she says, we don't have blue zone communities, or do you? What does the term mean?
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Muddy Puddles. So the blue zone, just to cover the core points about it. The blue zones were basically sort of brought to light through a research project done with multiple scientists, physicians, and uh, ethnographers, and sort of who was spearheading this. Dan Buettner, who used to be with National Geographic. I don't know if he still is or not, but he was a reporter for National Geographic. Amazing man. He's like bicycled across multiple continents.
Yeah.
And part of his work, part of that assignment was, well, it seems like there are areas around the world that have higher concentration of centenarians, healthy 100-year-olds, but in general, healthy 80, 90, 100-year-olds. Why are there certain places around the world where you have a high concentration of long living, healthy folks?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the key findings from the very beginning is that based on various studies, it seems like about 20% of longevity is based on genes. There's a classic study that looked at identical twins, and you would think if they were identical that they would, basically die the same year, but or live this to the same age, in other words. But they seem to parse out that about 20% of our longevity is based on our genetics, but then that leaves about 80% based on something else. What are we exposed to? What do we do every day? What do we eat? How do we move? Are we getting sleep, etc.? And so they looked, with that in mind, they looked at places around the world. They found areas that have the highest concentration of healthy elderly. At one point they circled them with a blue marker on a map, and the phrase blue zones came out of that, something as simple as that. But the original areas were Icaria, which is in Greece, Sardinia, which is in Italy, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, Okinawa in southern Japan, and the only place in the U.S. Was a place called Loma Linda in Southern California that has a very high concentration of Seventh-day Adventists, who in general have a lifestyle that stays away from smoking and drinking and emphasizes movement and outdoor time and eating healthy meals and things like that. And basically they looked at these 5 areas and they said, what do they have in common? What do they have different? Is it that they all have the genetic lottery and they have great genes, or is there something else? And it turns out that while genetics plays some role, it seems like the majority of what has helped these folks in these communities traditionally has been this combination of lifestyle choices that lead to healthy, long life. And, I don't think everyone can't live to 100 or 105, but most of us can add years to our life by making certain daily choices. And not only that, adding life to our years, which is more important, that no one wants to live to 100 if the last 20 years they are, stuck in dementia and in a wheelchair and having spoon fed, right? We want quality life as much as we can get it, and there's no guarantees, but I like the idea that you can follow some guidelines about ways to increase your chance of getting there, and we'll delve into it. But one of the things that they had in common was spending time in their gardens.
Yeah, that was again too, and it gets mentioned here and there throughout this documentary that they have out about all this stuff. And I think some of the personal stories of the individual people that they tell are just amazing and fascinating, and all of that as well too. And so it comes down to kind of these 9 power principles that kind of come through the research, and again, like I said, I watched this kind of thinking about gardening and all this sort of stuff as well, a little bit more so in each of these kind of categories and everything. And we did kind of touch on one of the first principles a little bit in a conversation we'd had not too long ago, talking about mobility. Right. And we were talking about, how do we use our garden as kind of exercise and all of that? But really what it comes down to is just doing gardening. It just brings natural exercise in a way, right? This natural movement, natural mobility that we're trying to emphasize. One of the things I thought was really kind of fascinating that they talked about in one of those first cities, Okinawa, right? Was that one of the things he was saying he kind of first noticed many, many years ago when he first came to this island and everything, was that these people don't really have furniture. You know what I mean? They're sitting most of the time. They're getting up and down all day long, 30 plus times a day, getting up and down and doing things, moving around constantly and doing this sort of stuff. And he relevated that to a big, huge problem we have with elderly in I don't know, in other culture, I guess you would say, other than blue zone cultures, but is falls. Breaking bones, that can really limit someone's life when they start having injuries at a younger and younger age, right? So this natural mobility plays a huge role in their ability to be able to seek that, more fulfilling life you were just talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very valid point. I think the idea of sitting on the ground in your home, in a traditional home in Okinawa, sitting down and standing up, and sitting down, standing up when you're all for decades and decades, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's quite important. It's funny how we love our sofas, our recliners, and our comfortable toilets and all this stuff, but in so many cultures, you don't have that comfort. There's more work in it, and in incorporating our leg muscles, which are some of our largest muscles in our bodies, very, very important for all sorts of reasons. One that just came up when I was giving a talk today, but that uh, our skeletal muscles are the main users of our blood sugar, for example. And so the more we use our muscles, the more we build our muscles, the more efficient we are at burning glucose, the less likely we're going to have diabetes. And if we have diabetes, the more we can keep things in control by having a really activated group of muscles, and legs and back, for example, are some really big ones that use a lot of glucose. But he's talking about physical activity in the blue zones, that why gardening is so good for it. It's that it's something that we do every day. Right. A patient will ask me, Doc, what's the best kind of exercise? And the best kind of exercise is the exercise you're going to do. And for you specifically. Right. And gardening is so powerful because it nudges us to do things. Like if it's just me going to the gym, there might not be as much motivation as if I don't go outside and water my seedlings, they're going to fry. Or if I don't cover them and uncover them with the frost blanket this time of year, they're either going to get too hot during the day or they'll freeze at night. Whatever it is that nudges us in a way more than just, oh, I should get up and do something because it's good for me. The difference there, I think, is that one of them is the goal is years from now, in a way that you're like, oh, I'm doing this so that I'll be healthier later. The nudges that gets us out of our seat to do something this hour is because it is necessary to do this hour, right? And when you have those nudges multiple times a day, every day of the week, then that is just from the repetition, even though it's not running a marathon or doing a triathlon or something that at one time requires a whole lot of work. It just all adds up over time.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's just this keeping moving, right? That's kind of the idea. In most of these places, this is a just daily activity for them. And in that physical routine. One of the other places, again, too, you mentioned Sardinia, Italy, which I found was really kind of fascinating in their research, is they were looking for where's the higher concentration of these centurions, these folks who are living close, to 100 or so. And they were noticing that, the higher the hill, the steeper the hill, or, the more that they had to work going up and down stairs and these walkways. If anybody's seen Italy before and seen those pictures of their little villages on these hills, there are these winding little pathways that go up between the homes, and up at the higher hills, they found more more folks who are living longer and having better longevity, through just, again, this constant daily movement, out taking a walk every day.
Yeah. I have a friend who was lucky enough to be able to build onto his home as the family was getting bigger and needed more space and stuff. And he said, yeah, I don't want to mess with trying to build up because, having stairs, it's, going up and down, it's going to be such a pain. So we're going to build out. And I said, no, you should try to build up because, the necessity of going upstairs, for example, even though in the moment it might be, seem like it's a little off-putting, but over the long run, it's actually really good for us. And many of us in America live in more flat areas, don't live in those super hilly villages like you would see in places in Italy and whatnot. But yeah, it just a catchphrase from Buettner and his work in Blue Zones is you want the healthy choice to be the easy choice. And it's just the natural choice is that if you're going to walk to your friend's house, you're going to use the stairs or you're going to go up the hill. That is easier in a sense than saying, I'm going to go to the gym and use the Stairmaster, because you need the impetus to do that. It's different.
Yeah. Okay. So, and again, too, one of the other things, which is the next one down, at least on the list we got here, I'm not sure if these are really in order or if there is an order to them, really, the 9 principles. But the next one here, anyways, really kind of goes along with that, moving naturally and everything, is that what you notice is that folks are out on a walk every day because there's a purpose. They're doing things, they're going out, and they're either connecting with their community and doing things. They talked about it is what is it, the these product ikigai, right? Ikigai. And then there's also too the plan de vida from Costa Rica as well. These kind of sayings they have in their culture is just this mentality of like, each day should bring some sort of purpose. We should be doing something, and this is one of the things that helps folks live longer, is to not retire and not just to sit back, you know what I mean, is to, again, maybe you have a job for 30 years and you pull back from the job, but when you're at home, you now start that garden and you're working in that garden every single day. This is now a purpose for you. This drives you, this gets you up in the morning so that you can do and tend things, right? And this is really important as well, because that also kind of drives that natural mobility, right?
For sure. When you, as a physician, when I'm assessing somebody who says, I'm retiring from my job, when that person defined him or herself by their job and doesn't have anything else that is life defining and motivating, those are the folks that you worry about as far as how their health is going to do after they leave their job, right? But when you find purpose in other ways that are going to stick with you, regardless of whether you are still in the workforce, for example, then that is a very healthy pattern to see when folks are defining their purpose based on other things. And for many of us, it's growing some of our own food, because we are, we're doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for our families, we're doing it for the people that we give the food to, we're doing it in a sense almost for the trees and plants themselves, because they're living organisms, and we put a certain amount of nurturing and stuff into them, and it really, that the having a sense of purpose is critical, and you don't want that to be, if it is your work and only your work, that's going to go away at some point probably, and so we look for other things, and gardening can do that.
Yeah, exactly. Just that idea, I got to get up, I got to take care of these things, or as you were mentioning too, depending on the season or whatever, do I got to go cover some things up? Do I got, what do I got to do in order to maintain? And again too, a garden, you're caring for something, so there is a lot of purpose in what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. That's why, again too, as we're talking about this, we're looking at, how is gardening really just like this really kind of great space and place to be able to achieve a lot of these sort of different principles, right? And a garden does, it's just caring for it gives us kind of that daily purpose of having to take care of these plants and to the point where we're it's going to come back and we're going to have food for ourselves later on, but that caring process is a part of that purpose, right?
Yeah, and we've been doing it for so long, right? In modern society, AI is only so old, phones are only so old, and computers and televisions are only so old. But like getting our hands in the soil and nurturing something and feeding ourselves, that has been going on for so long that it is such a core part of our being. And I think with so many, I mean, still granted, somewhere around 1 in 3 Americans grow some of their own food, depending on what the year you're looking at, I think. But still, that means 2/3 of Americans perhaps are no longer you know, involved in this very elemental, very core process that we've been doing for thousands of years. And so, it, even though it seems like a radical thing to do sometimes, oh, hey, I'm growing some of my own food. It seems from a different lens, there's nothing radical about it. We've been doing it for, many, many, many years.
Yeah, I don't know why something seems to have happened with my screen. Oh well, as
You
long
look,
as everybody can hear me. Let's see if we can figure this out. Anyways, but yeah, that's such a huge thing, and as well too, I think someone was just asking about lifestyle and stress and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, Dusty here. Um, we think about too, as I was noticing in there, that Plan de Vida in Costa Rica, they talk about too as well. And this is one of the next ones is downshift, right?
Mhm.
People have daily routines, and in these sort of things. So one of the examples they bring is this like 100, what is he, like 105, I think it was his story or something. He's out just on his horse whipping cows around and doing everything, but he gets up with that purpose every morning to go out and work and do all of that, but he does it only so much. Gets around the afternoon, it's time to shift down. It's time to relax a little bit. It's time to take a nap maybe, and then maybe go get out and get in the community and do some other things and stuff. But you know what I mean? You got to have the purpose, but at the same time, you also got to, not be too driven, I suppose, right?
That's a good point. It does seem to be about balance. And I think,
Mhm.
um, when you get an email from your boss at 10 at night and you got to get back to him or her, and you got deadlines all the time and productivity, American way, bigger, faster, better, more. That is, that this sort of seems to be taking it a little too far. That we need to, sure, we need to contribute to society. We need to make a living, support our families, and all this kind of stuff. But it's important to wind down and to de-stress. And living with chronic stress that you don't address either through, getting together with friends and laughing, some meditation,
Mhm.
deep breathing, some prayer, some walking in nature, working in your garden, whatever it is for you. If you're constantly in drive, drive, go, go mode, it's deleterious for your health. And it's not like, people in Sardinia don't have stresses. They have stresses, but it is a different way of life. It's a slower way of life, and the traditional, more like walking around herding your goats and stuff. They
Mhm.
so I don't think the answer is for Americans to go back to everybody walking their goats around, but is to keep in mind that there needs to be a balance.
Yeah, yeah. And again, yeah, you're talking about the shepherds and stuff in that part of the story as well, too, is that part of it is their job really is they're not it's not as stressful in a sense, you know what I mean? And part of our lifestyles anymore for a lot of us here, especially in America and all of that, is just these high stress jobs, you know what I mean? Just go, 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 and just, constant worry, constant all that sort of stuff. Whereas a more, you know, purpose in trying to de-stress and to do things, so how would we in a way, and again, this kind of comes back to gardening, right? Great way to maybe de-stress in your day or something like that is to maybe come home, relax, spend some time in your garden, spend some time in nature, doing these sort of things like that, right? So,
Yeah.
these sort of measures and things that we can do to really acknowledge the stress we're going through and then take some actions to kind of, you know, push back against it, I guess, on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think being in nature is a key aspect of it, because we do spend more time indoors than we ever have as a race, right? We have never spent this amount of time indoors, and oftentimes sitting, right? And so the studies have shown just listening to bird calls lowers blood pressure. We have some small studies showing how organisms in the soil, different types of bacteria, actually help with serotonin release, which is one of our relaxation and chill hormones that we naturally have in our body. Being surrounded by greenery, all of these things, which we have just developed alongside of, so many of us are removed from. We don't hear bird calls. We don't we're not exposed to these soil organisms. We're not surrounded by greenery. We might have a single little pothos or something like that in our next to our desk. But if we're working 12 hours on the computer, having one potted plant's not going to make that the big difference. And so I definitely think that's part of it, is getting outside as much as possible. Sometimes when it's -10, it's a little bit harder to do. So, definitely a nod to everyone who's still struggling with deep winter right now. But the more we can get out, be exposed to nature, the better.
Hey, what are they? Okay, here's something maybe a little off topic for a quick second, but kind of has to do with that a little bit. So there's this big craze, over the last couple of years of folks dipping into ice baths, right? And how it can, as a doctor, explain that a little bit there too. And maybe is there something to do with the cold or something? Maybe we should be getting ourselves out and doing a little work in the cold or something. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that there is mixed research along with that. Someone just did a review of cold plunges, and I think it was a mixed bag. I think that some people can get heart arrhythmias, so irregular heart beats and stuff with sudden cold plunges and stuff, and so that could be that's on the downside. If I get a chance, I'll do a quick search to see what the research has shown about the benefits. I mean, oftentimes in social media, benefits of new things are often blown out of proportion, and downsides are often overlooked. I think cold plunges can be fun. If you're lucky enough to have access to a hot tub or a sauna, and then you do a quick plunge after, or a cold shower or something like that. But for the consistent scientific benefits, I'd have to double check to see what the latest is.
But I know I kind of relevate it to the idea of this purpose, these folks and all that sort of stuff. I just don't think in those blue zones or in these other areas. Some of them are pretty nice places, though. They're pretty warm places, so they don't really have to worry about it too much, I guess. But that idea that I don't think they let the cold get in the way. You know what I mean? I don't think they let those sort of things, bother them when it comes to their sense of purpose and what they're doing, right? Yeah. Let's see here. Shawnee was asking though too. Let's see here. I'm not sure if I caught this part of everything, but have you thoughts on the napkin test? 9 questions to unlock purpose. Have you heard of the napkin test? Uh-oh. Did we?
No, I don't. I don't know anything about the napkin test. You have to let me know more about it. While there,
I think Jay put a link in there too. Here, unlock your passions and purpose.
Oh, okay.
Something to look into, I guess, for those out there. I'll have to do that as well.
Yeah, I think if this is what I'm wondering, it might be, some people might feel like I don't really have any passions or any purposes, and maybe this will help turn you on to things that really do motivate you more than others. I was going to say here before we move on that doing a quick search in a medical search engine for cold water immersion looks like some potential benefits for inflammation, sleep quality, and exercise recovery. So not a part of
a few friends who do it, and they just talk about it like it's the greatest thing they ever did in their life. So I haven't quite got there yet myself, but yeah.
Cool.
That's the thing I would be worried about though too. You already mentioned, because I already know what it's like when the hot water goes off in the shower. You ever notice how your heart just starts to go, so me, I'm just like, oh, my heart gonna stop, if I get into something so cold, right? That would be a big word for me, man.
And I hate being cold and wet, so this is probably a little bit of my bias that I don't know more about the research on this, because my wife goes swimming in the morning, and she, we've been married for 11 years, and I think maybe she's convinced me to go once with her or something. So it's my personal bias against it.
Excellent. Let's see here. Bowtie was asking real quick. I stay very active in my handyman lifestyle. Is there any kinds of routine activity you think may not be beneficial to longevity? Ooh, yeah. Let's take a look at it the other way.
I'll have to think about that. But if you take, for example, take gardening, and I think handyman work will have a lot of the same benefits, but it's a combination of different forms of physical activity that are beneficial, right? So walking around, doing your daily stuff is a bit of cardiovascular work. Carrying, the buckets of compost, or the refrigerator motor, or whatever it is that you're carrying. There's the strength work. There's definitely flexibility as you're reaching for this and that, and balance, particularly out in the garden when you're walking on uneven terrain. And to work on a combination of that is important. I feel like I'm more of a runner than someone who would want to be lifting weights, but I'm trying to do a combination of those things when I'm not actively in the garden. Maybe I'll go for a jog one day, maybe I'll do push-ups and squats another day, but you really want a variety of things to work to get benefit, because there's different benefits from all of those.
Yeah, definitely. Just kind of having a wide range of things to do. But I like what you're saying there too, is that, you can go out and do some things purposely because, maybe I need to work on this a little bit more, some upper arm strength, or, maybe my legs need a little bit more or something. You can, kind of just target those things a little bit. But in general, again, too, this is, you're out in your garden, you're getting a bit of all of this stuff. You're lifting some weights, like you're saying, you're walking, you're working balance, you're up and down, and you're doing all these sort of things that just really, again, through this blue zone research, has just really been proven to be some of the best forms of exercise.
True. And he asked about types of exercise or types of activity to maybe avoid. And I think the one thing that comes to mind is the sudden intense physical exertion is one of the more potentially risky things to do. If you are someone who is, or just speaking in general, someone who maybe be at risk for heart disease because of diet and sedentary lifestyle and stuff, and then all of a sudden, boom, you have to catch that train that's leaving, or you're, it's that one time a year where all of a sudden you have to shovel all sorts of snow off the driveway. That sudden intense physical exertion can, in the short term, increase risk of heart attack. And so the goal, of course, for anyone who's getting into movement is to start low, go slow, and build up, and to watch out for the sudden physical exertion, especially if you've got some unknown cardiac stuff going on.
Yeah. Just take it easy, don't overdo anything. I mean, it's just things that, you shouldn't be picking up, or you should be picking up a little bit more in a proper way, right? Now we're talking like bending over, lifting things versus using those sort of things like that, right? So, as with every other things we watch out in our day-to-day life, we should watch for those things too in our garden.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move to kind of one of the next things too, because in our garden, we're out there, we're growing, we might have all this purpose, and we're out moving naturally, and we're growing all this sort of stuff, but we're growing food. And one of the biggest things, big things in these blue zones when it comes down to it is diet, right? And I thought was really kind of fascinating again too, going back to like the beginning of this documentary, is they're talking about Okinawa and everything, and he's looking at their diets and their routines and everything. And someone was also mentioning in the chat just a little bit earlier too, that there seems to be folks are kind of nearer to oceans, right? And in some senses, in a lot of these cases and stuff. But, so you'd figure there's some bunch of seafood or things that are going into all of this, but what they found in this research was, you look at it, they're eating these seafood, meats, all these sort of things. But then they found one of the big pieces of their diet, like 70% of their diets was, what was it called? Beni emu, which is purple sweet potato,
Sweet
right?
potato.
Yeah, the sweet potato, in the sense of carbs and how they're bringing their carbs in to their diet and everything. So you want to kind of talk about a little bit of the importance of what we're looking at and the things that we might be growing in our garden to kind of, have an attention towards those more beneficial things we could be growing to include in our diet.
Sure. I think that is taking healthy foods from the garden and also medicinal plants and herbs and is one of the main reasons why gardening seems to be beneficial to our health, over just growing, for example, a pretty rose garden or something. Whereas, there's benefits associated with that as well, but the benefits are greater if you are actively eating from your garden. And all of the major populations over time have survived on carbohydrate rich starches, so whether it's grains or potatoes or sweet potatoes, rice, quinoa, these places that have sustained populations over time through famine, etc. Healthy carbohydrates have been at the key. The highly processed carbohydrate junk that is out there now with, everything being white flour and soaked in extra salt, oil, and sugar to make it hyper palatable. These ultra processed foods are a main reason why we are suffering with our health. I mean, most adults in America have have a chronic lifestyle condition nowadays. It seems like between high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or arthritis, etc. And so much of it has to do with our diet. So the more we can eat out of our gardens, the better. And we're not growing, Cheetos in our garden. We're not growing Twinkies, and we're not growing morning sausages. We are growing, healthy, antioxidant rich foods, kale, berries, just about everything that you can grow in your garden has some health benefit to it. And we need our plates, in the blue zones, they say roughly 90% of their diet is a plant-based diet. Many of them will still have meat, but far less than what we consume the 3 times a day in America. And so really putting a focus on what you're eating is the type of stuff that you could grow in your garden is one of the major benefits of it.
Yeah, and again too, I find this really kind of fascinating because this is something I've been thinking about is I'm getting older here, and boy, oh boy, I start to feel it in my bones even at my age. And I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm a lot older than I really am sometimes. But that's, that comes down to kind of like a real large point here though, too, is that these plant-based diets, even though, and I'll admit too, man, I love a steak. I'm a meat person. I do, but I have to admit, the more and more I look into things and the more and more as I look at the sort of stuff that I'm dealing with and feeling, that like, well, wait a minute, there's a lot of truth to this idea of a plant-based diet bringing down inflammation. And this is huge, especially as we're talking about blue zones or getting older, as we're maturing more, that inflammation can be very detrimental to our lifestyle, what we're going to be doing. How are we going to accomplish this purpose? How are we going to get out and do daily naturally motivated activities and all of that if what we're eating is constantly putting and pushing our inflammation up so high? right? And so that's something I have to address, and I have to think about myself. And I've got a few older friends, you know, who've done and made those moves themselves and talked about how much of a big difference it was to move to a higher plant-based diet when it came to their ability just to do everyday things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's powerful information. I'm glad that you're looking into it. You know, as a doc, I don't tell people what they have to eat and what they cannot eat, but
Yep.
but if they're coming to me and saying, "What can I do with my diet so that I have less pain, so that I have less risk of getting diabetes, having a heart attack, having a stroke, you know, so that I can be around and be healthy and, you know, throw the ball with my grandkids, what can I do?" And my suggestion is pretty much always to go in that direction of eating as many plant-based foods as you can, and
Hmm.
not, you know, and to make them as close to as what they look like, as when they come out of the garden, right? So
Yeah.
more processing tends to be detrimental to the benefits of the food. So I don't recommend anybody to drink apple juice, but I recommend everybody to eat apples. And it's
Yeah.
night and day the difference between what they do to our health. And there's
Hmm.
something about that perfect package as it comes with the fiber and all the components before they are stripped out and made into juice, that really just eating it as close as it looks as when you pick it off the branch, the better.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And our mutual friend, how I got to know you and introduce you, John Kohler, you know, here's our good, he talk about a plant-based individual right there, but becoming
Yeah.
friends with him, and boy, he teases me all the time, man. He gives me a hard time. But you know, it's good to have that nudge from someone in someone who's done and lived and put purpose behind their own research into knowing how this works for them and all of that. So it's great to see how well it works for him. And then again to getting that interaction, like, okay, yeah, I'm working on it, and I am too, you know,
Mhm.
more. And so, and it's good to have those folks in your life and everything, but there is a reality to a lot of this stuff, you know, when it comes down to it. As much as I like meat and want to eat meat and enjoy all of that sort of stuff, I have to be realistic about the certain things if I want to be doing certain things. So let's get back real quick to again to uh well, actually, you know, we kind of staying on that too. One of the other things they talked about too, in one of the stories was, you know, these getting all of their they were one place was doing the three sisters. Now, if you're a gardener, you're familiar with the three sisters, right? We all, as we get into gardening, end up with the three sisters garden at some point in time during our gardening experience, you know, and that's growing your corn with your beans and having your squash roll around, and they all kind of work together and do that. But they grow those things because those things in combination is really the key as far as our diet, not just how they grow in the garden. And we all think about it, okay, well, we got the squash that does the, you know, kind of covers the ground for us as it grows and stretches all around as these big tall stalks of corn grow up, and we can use them as trellising for our beans and all this sort of stuff. So it creates this kind of perfect three things to grow together in our garden. But really it's the dietary function these three things provide that's really, really key and important, right? And that kind of gets back to what we're talking about when we're talking about why, and you know, we're eating meat and everything, because a lot of folks really, whether it's taste or not, but we really believe that's where we're going to get all of these 9 amino acids that we're supposed to be getting. But
Mhm.
within those three you can find that as well, right?
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. Actually, what's lesser known out there is that all plant foods contain all amino acids. They're just in different in vastly different ratios, and so you could get all of your essential amino acids from eating just beans, for example, but you'd have to eat a lot of beans to get some of the amino acids that it's relatively low in. But it's
Mhm.
easier when you eat a varied diet like everyone does. Like you know, I've never met anybody who only eats one type of food. And the good news is that you don't have to eat them at the same meal or even the same day. And so now most of us will eat, you know, you look at a traditional Mesoamerican type diet with, you know, a bean and corn, maybe sometimes with the rice or something like that, and the greens, and that is a perfectly balanced plate. It gives
Mhm.
all of the necessary protein building blocks and vitamins, minerals, etc. It also seems to taste good together. But the good news is there used to be a trend in dieting where it's like, oh, well, plants, in order to get that perfect protein, you have to make sure that you eat your beans and your corn together, or your beans and your rice together. And that, thankfully, we've found out that you don't have to do it the same meal. You just eat a variety of foods, and it's all going to work out.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, let's see here. I want to address this one here real quick. Maybe the doctor can help us with this real quick. Rob, I don't want to give you too much of a hard time here, really, at this, but Rob's put this comment in here. He says, at the end of the day, it is the luck of the draw. When it's your turn, then time's up. The man who invented the jogging died of a heart attack while out jogging. And then he says, good health won't stop the car from hitting you. I don't know if that's the right way to be looking at life at all when it comes down to it. I don't want to give you too much of a hard time, Rob, but that's not the way we don't worry about the car in the sense of, having a good system of walking and getting around and being aware of our surroundings and all of that. So in the long run, we don't worry about the car, right? Because those things are, accidents will happen. Folks are going to, things are going to happen. And again, too, maybe certain things are going to be that, but do we live our life in a different way, or should we live our life as to not seek longevity because there might be a car coming around the corner? What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun comment to sort of muse, to think about what it all would mean. And I agree. I could eat the world's best diet and get in my 60 push-ups and all that kind of stuff and walk out the door and get struck by lightning, right?
Yep.
But we do what we can that's in our control. And we always also have to realize that there are things that are out of our control. I think another good example is, the press will definitely find a story of some man or woman who reaches to 100 and they interview her and she says, well, my breakfast has been a cigar and a shot of whiskey, and for the last 20 years. And people love those stories because they're just like, cool, maybe I should be, enjoying my cigar and brandy for breakfast, like, or whiskey or whatever, like she was. And we just have to be careful with a case report. In other words, an individual story. If you look at 1,000 people who have whose breakfast is a cigar and whiskey, then you will see a much better picture of the more likely reality. Everybody's an individual, and you can't say definitively that if you lead one type of lifestyle that X or Y or Z is going to happen. But we just do the best that we can based off of looking at big populations and a combination of the scientific studies out there. So in answer to Rob's question, everybody is in, more or less, to a certain degree, we're in control of how we live our lives. And some folks are like, hey, for me, it's much more important to, drink a 6-pack of beer and smoke a couple of packs of cigarette because it feels good to me in the moment. And my uncle lived to 100 and he smoked every day. But and that's fine for you if that's what you want to do. But as a physician, I try to base my recommendations to my patients on a balance of what we know from big scientific studies. And I'd say most people who live that way will end up with an earlier death, or if not, just dealing with things like emphysema and heart attacks and stuff younger than they would have otherwise.
Yeah, I love the example in that documentary too. You had the one gentleman who was like 101 or something, and he was like, yeah, my father, he smoked and drank all of his life and died at 70 something or whatever, right? And he's got like 30 more years than his own father, based on those sort of things, right? And even in that, so I don't know. I mean, it's just, again, too, when it comes down to it, I think, again, for most, to each their own. But when it comes down to it, we can only really look at what is working in general for most, right? Outliers in some sense don't really tell the whole story. So in the long run, when we look at the larger group of us and what's working for, the majority of us in a sense, then we should probably be focused on those. And I think that's kind of where blue zones came down. It's like, these are concentrations. These are like, what's going on here? Because there are concentrations here, right? And that means that they're just doing things differently. Right. And we should look at those sort of things and kind of examine how those things work. And that's exactly what this whole thing's about, right?
I agree. One of the things that we haven't talked about is that part of the work that has come out of the blue zones is to create blue zones communities in America. And
Yeah, I
so
was gonna get to
basically
that.
it's,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Basically as a company now, you could say, hey, blue zones communities, I want to make my hometown of Fargo, North Dakota,
Yeah.
a blue zones. Can we start the discussion with city planners and the
Yep.
mayor and all this kind of stuff? And they say, hey, look, here's 60 things that we can offer and what makes the most sense to y'all, and then we'll help widening the bike lanes and the sidewalks to make it a more walkable downtown, and putting
Yep.
reducing the speed limit around places where people want to walk, and getting less billboards for fast foods and healthier options on the menus. And what's
Yeah.
powerful about this is that when you make these citywide or community-wide changes, then you see that you can sort of create healthier, longer-lived communities. So
Mhm.
you don't have to happen to be born a Sardinian or a
Yeah.
Korean or an Okinawan.
Yeah, because that's where it kinda starts. It was kinda like, "Hey, we just noticed this is what's going on. There's a lot of people living a lot longer over here. Let's learn from it so then we can find ways to implement it." You brought up one point before we really get into the creating blue zones part, but a big part of that, though, is this next real big thing that we see in this research is community. Is
Mhm.
people's connection with each other. And then pertaining to gardening, right? Community gardens. I've had a few plots in a couple of community gardens that we have here. It's just amazing to connect with people, to have those interactions and to be able to share with each other things that you're mutually passionate about and do these sort of things. And that drives up our longevity as well too, right? It's a real it probably to me as I really think about it. You got all these other little things we're doing individually, but when we start to take a look at the things we're doing as a community, and especially in those more traditional blue zones, that's
Mhm.
where things really just come alive to me in a sense, is that people are doing things together and help support each other in doing those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. I think we are less community oriented and driven now than we used to be. It's easier to be insular in your home, with less connection to others.
Yeah.
But we have developed in tribes and clans and families. It takes a village, and all these things that are just core to the development of humans as a species. And um, gardening is one way. If you're part of a community garden, that's a great way to do it. But then also, you're gardening in your front yard and your neighbor walks
Yeah.
by and says, what's that
Mhm.
crazy thing climbing up that trellis? Or
Yep.
um, you know, uh, trying to give.
Inviting people in too from your neighborhood, like, as well, like, "Hey, come check it out. Come see what I've got growing on. I'd like to show you this and that and everything as well too." I
Yeah.
mean, again, community building. It's just, I found that to be one of the more really fascinating aspects of all of that. Um, the what do they call it? The Moai in Okinawa, these people get into these committed social groups where they're really there to support each other. And I guess in that case, it was originally, I think, in the sense of the name, more financially at that point, but yet they found that the bigger benefit was just their connection and friendships with each other that they started creating that then lasted the rest of their lives. And it was, again, too, really contributes to that longevity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty neat. They say if you don't show up to your Moai meeting that happens, 5 days a week, they'll come knocking at your door, and
Yeah.
that connection is often lacking in our
Mhm.
society. And you might have 1,000 friends on Facebook and Instagram, but if you don't show up for a month to Facebook and Instagram, nobody might they're busy with other things, and you're just you might just be a quote unquote Facebook friend, but it's very different when we've got these in-person connections. I'm not knocking all virtual relationships, right? You've built a community here that is virtual and there's benefits to it, but it's nice to have the real touch in-person kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's so great. And then again, too, before we really run out of time here today, because there's so much to talk about with this stuff, man. But someone was mentioning here too. I was trying to see if I could go back and see if it was still here. But someone's talking again too, kind of about finances, expenses, and I think one of the things that in that documentary too was kind of interesting was that folks who there were some really poor regions in some of these blue zones. People who, that, I don't know if it necessarily was necessarily that effect to it, but it kind of helped drive their purpose, drive their connection with community, doing all these sort of things in order to get through certain things together and all of that. But I want to kind of move this again back to what you were saying about creating these blue zones though too, right? And again, I know they talked about that there's some poor regions, so I don't know, that wealth definitely in expenses and the stress of life and working, as we talked about earlier, those definitely are contributors to negative contributors to what we're dealing with and everything. But also I found too, and I don't know, I'm trying to get somewhere here, I swear to you. But I found that was really interesting too, and let's put wealth in there as well, and kind of lifestyles and these different things and aspects that I think we have here in more of a Western cultural thinking about things. I found it really fascinating in Singapore, right? That really the wealthy drive, and they're okay with it. Was just really the thing that really kind of got me, was that they charge a lot. They tax people who want to drive very heavily. I mean, and just to have a driver's license, it costs you a lot of money just to have the license, without the car, right? And then the car costs you a lot and that sort of stuff. So they've purposely pushed into the way they set up their system to drive folks away from cars, right? Only 11% of their population drives. And they have some of the best public transportation systems and all of this sort of stuff. Nobody is lacking for getting anywhere. And these people love it. And one of the things that they're doing there too, and I can't imagine an American at all sitting there going, hey, charge me extra for a driver's license, or make it impossible for me to be able to have my car, or something like that. But these people actually really like living in the society they live in, and they really, really enjoy the fact that they have more walking, more things that they're doing, more connection to people because they're walking. All these sort of things start to connect again because they're not in this car all day long. They're not trying to, hustle and bustle, this and that. They're really doing a lot of these sort of things because they've decided as a people that this is the system that they want to push that way. So again, too, now we're going to get to creating blue zones. Again, there's been some success, but it's got to be kind of difficult to really convince people that some of these sort of things that are really helpful and beneficial things, you know what I mean, are, is there a question there? but I mean, you see where I'm going, is that there's this perspective difference of how we want to live our lives based on the modern world we live in versus the things that we probably should be doing and the things that we probably should be accepting because it would be more beneficial for our lives in the long run. And so in some senses, I guess they're really making decisions for folks to live better, healthier lives, right? And we don't want people doing that really in general, right? And I guess that kind of goes back to what Rob was saying in a way a little bit as well too. So let's kind of talk about that, in the sense of creating blue zones and what it's going to take to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly complex. I think
that's the point.
Yeah. To answer one comment that came that was at the early part of that, I think was about and it popped up as a comment as well about what role does wealth play with stress and longevity and all this kind of stuff in our finances. I think that having enough money to be able to afford, the simple pleasures in life, to make sure you've got enough for your rent and for healthcare and for a little bit of this and that. That is very important for sense of well-being and health, right? To be able to get your antibiotics and your vaccines and things that are necessary.
Yeah.
I think that going a whole lot above that, you have reducing benefits, reducing returns, right? So diminishing returns, I guess, is the phrase. So that somebody who makes $5,000 a year is probably suffering to meet basic needs. Somebody who's making $100,000 a year is probably having all their basic needs made and definitely comfortable in addition. Someone who's making $1 million a year, are they going to be much happier? Not necessarily, because once we have our needs met and are otherwise comfortable, having more and more finances tends to be tends to be more stressful and with diminishing returns. Okay, now the other part, though, you're commenting about how Singapore, which is being turned one of the new blue zones, because it was sort of created through the government to say, hey, look, we're going to have people walk more, we're going to have less driving, we're going to have a focus on neighborhood workout places, and there's going to be healthier options, and we're going to tax the unhealthy food. That's interesting because America tends to be very much the hey, I'm creating myself. I can be whoever I want to be because I'm American, and if I've earned through hard work and in sweat, if I want to drive 100 miles per hour, I should be able to do it, kind of a attitude. And in a lot of ways, that's gotten America huge successes in various areas, and made the U.S. a powerhouse. And so public health type approaches where we say, everyone's got to wear a seatbelt and there's no smoking in public places. At first, when these things come about, there's a lot of pushback, right? I could never have thought about, I grew up in the time where everyone smoked in bars and in clubs and stuff like that. And I could never imagine that in Texas, where I grew up, that you wouldn't just always just come home smelling like smoke if you went to a dance or something like that.
Yeah.
But look, that has changed, right? And same thing with seatbelts, same things with like open containers of alcoholic beverages in cars. And so there's always going to be pushback to things that take away a certain amount of our individuality and choice. And we don't want a state that says everybody can, to be too autocratic and say, you can have one child and, everyone has to drive gray cars and, whatever it is.
Exactly.
But it is a balance between coming up for things that meet the greater good of the population, because the country suffers if people are dying in their 50s from heart attacks because, cigarettes are free.
The healthcare system's overloaded.
All this to say is that when tying it back to the blue zones is that if you are in a community where blue zones is present, they're not making the cities some nerdy health town to where you can't go out and have a drink and a steak if you still want it, but you just want healthier lifestyle options to blend in naturally to where it just happens without a whole lot of extra work after that.
Again, too, like you said, there's just something in, again, with that balance between these two different cultural perspectives and how do we implement things within a larger society, right? And I just find some of the things that again, and I've talked about this before, I've had a couple of friends and a couple of people we've interviewed on the show spent a lot of time over in Asia and all of that, and they just this balance between, what we would say freedom and restriction. You know what I mean? And these sort of things that they do. But the one more fascinating thing that I find in most all of these cases, and both of the folks I've talked to have spent a lot of time over there, is that those folks really do like their system the way it is. You know what I mean? They enjoy those benefits that they get from it, the health benefits and all these sort of things that come with that sort of stuff. So I kind of find that fascinating. I just don't even know what it really means for us, where it's really like you say, I mean, if we want to do this way, then we're just going to do it, right? And that's the way I want to live my life. If I only want to live till 60 and do all of these sort of things, then that's the way I want to do it, right? And we should have the freedom to be able to do that stuff. But overall, as a society, we do have to think about things like how our healthcare systems are being overloaded and what kind of access we're able to get to them because of all of that sort of stuff. There are implications to everybody in each one of these scenarios. Yeah. And that's something we should really think about a lot. All right. Okay. Let's move on here real quick. I did have a question in here earlier that I think that's just a little bit out there, but anyways, or real quick, before we do that, is there anything you want to like say as kind of like a final, anything about blue zones at all, from your perspective or anything as we finish up there?
I'd say for folks who this is a newer topic to, check out the documentary. It's still on Netflix.
Yep.
And Dan Buettner has written lots of books on this, and there's magazine articles, and they've got a good website with information on it. And so just check it out. In the
description below, we got a link to the bluezones.org. I think we put a couple of those into the chat as well for folks who want to research that. But yeah, I think there's a lot to think about there. I mean, just so much, and especially for us gardeners and growers who are, we can kind of see some of these as we, growing our food and doing these different things. A lot of this stuff just kind of makes sense, and I just found it so fascinating coming from a gardener's perspective in looking at all of these different principles of blue zones.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Eddie came in there earlier and he was asking Jeff, he says, I have high iron in my blood and have to get blood drawn out every other month. Not supposed to even eat high iron food. Are there foods to combat high iron? There are things that he can grow in the garden, or things that he can go and get at the store, or what are these things that we can put into our diet that could help us out maybe if we do have iron issues?
Cool question, Eddie. Nice to meet you. I can't give specific medical information without really knowing all the details of somebody's history. And so these would just be general comments, but it sounds like you've got a condition called hemochromatosis, which is a genetic condition where you hold on to iron a whole lot more than the average person does without the genetic change. And people with hemochromatosis often need phlebotomy or get blood work done, sometimes even more frequently than every other month, because that's the only way to basically take out the iron, the extra iron, which over time, if you're not careful, that high iron buildup can affect internal organs, liver damage, and heart, and all these kinds of things. So it's an important condition to know that you have it. One of the nice things about eating more plant-based is that your body is able to be more selective with the iron. So even plant-based foods with iron in them, it's just less well absorbed, and your body can sort of say, no, I don't need this iron, or yes, I do, a little bit easier. Iron, when you take an iron pill or when you eat a steak that's got high iron, so in the example of the steak, that's heme iron, and your body just super absorbs that, and that would be potentially detrimental to people who are trying to get less iron. And I think heme iron in general has been shown in some studies to be more inflammatory than than iron coming from plant sources. And so in general, I recommend folks to get their iron just from plant-based foods. I have one patient with hemochromatosis, and he is plant-based, and he doesn't have to get his blood drawn at all. And it might just be because he has a different variant of it than you do, or it might be in part because of the plant-based sources of iron. The other thing to think about is cast iron, which I cook out of very frequently, and I recommend as one of the safer types of cookware, more so than like the nonstick coated with Teflon related forever chemical products. But every time we cook from cast iron, there is a certain amount of iron that leaches. And so for anyone with hemochromatosis, I would say do something else like, carbon steel or enameled cookware, but or what's the other one that we tried recently? Just sticking away from cast iron.
Yeah, or using cast iron.
No, for someone like him who absorbs too much iron, I would stay away from cast iron. Someone who is
okay,
someone who's chronically anemic or
I'm following along here.
I would say cast iron is great, but for someone like him, no.
Okay, excellent. Right on, man. Thank you so much. Again, such a wonderful, fascinating topic that we talk about today, blue zones and all of that. It's just it's so incredible. There was one other thing I was wanting to mention about it though, too. But I don't know if I can remember now. But anyways,
next time. If you just remember it.
Yeah, again, it's so many great things and so many fascinating things about the idea of how we can improve our longevity through all these sort of different things and all that sort of stuff. I don't know necessarily. I have to admit, I never really treated myself very well up until just recently in my life. So I don't know really. I mean, maybe that'll be my final question to you as we finish up as well too. What about those of us who really have, you know what I mean? We're just kind of figuring some of this stuff later in life. I'm 50 years old. I smoked most of my life, 8 tons of red meat and all this sort of stuff, do I still have hope?
Yeah, you do, and folks who abuse their body, so many of us have, and we're like, sometimes it's a health scare, sometimes it's like a small heart attack, and it's a big wake up call, or sometimes it's a new diagnosis of high blood pressure or diabetes or whatever it is, and the good news is it's not too late. They have immersions that might last for just 1 or 2 weeks, where you really change what you're eating, and that's the primary change, but maybe you get a little bit more active. And even within a week to 2, you see cholesterol start to fall, and blood pressure start to fall, and blood sugar start to fall. It's just, I had no idea even in medical school that the body was so capable of changing things around even after decades of abuse. So, ask your doc about it, or if you want to see me and you happen to live in Texas, California, or Florida, you could see me or one of my coworkers. I work in a group that covers all 50 states. And so if this is something that your own doc isn't very knowledgeable about and you need a consultation, we could talk about it more specifically. But in general, the idea is that it's not too late.
Yeah, absolutely. Not too late. Well, that's good news to hear for sure. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Jeffrey Pierce. Always so awesome to have you here with us. And as he mentioned too, we've got links down below in the description to the telehealth if you want, or you can go follow along. Dr. Jeff's always sharing his gardening and all that stuff over on Instagram as well too. So put a link for all of that as well too, so you can just follow along there. So again, Jeff, thank you so much for spending your time to come here, talk about this. This is just such a really awesome conversation. I think we're heading in some really, really awesome directions with these conversations too. So again, it's just really, really amazing to have the ability to talk to someone, especially a medical doctor, about all these sort of great things. And I know our audience really, really appreciates it, Jeff.
Thank you, Nick. It's my pleasure. Nice to see you, and great to chat with your really engaged audience.
Excellent. So until next time, we'll see you then, Dr. Jeff. Thank you so much. Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right. Excellent. Excellent. What a great conversation with Dr. Jeff here again on the show here talking about blue zones. I hope that y'all got a lot out of that conversation. I know I certainly did. And again, we could have talked another hour or two. There's so much when it comes to these blue zones and all of that. So I definitely encourage you all to go and check out the link that we left down below to the Blue Zones website. So you can go check that out, or also go check out that documentary on Netflix if you have that as well too. I just found those stories just to be so fascinating, and these people just to be so amazing when it comes down to it. So go check those out. Go learn a little bit more about blue zones and maybe how you can, achieve some of these principles yourself through your own gardening experience. So thanks again, Jeff, for being here and talking with us about that. So right on, everybody. Again, another great show here. Hope you all really enjoyed it. I did mention earlier, if you didn't get a chance to check out yesterday's show, definitely go and check out yesterday's show, as it was our community show. You, the audience, were the guest yesterday. This was our very first community show of 2026. Go back and check that out and go see some of those folks that you get to hang out and talk with in the chat on a week-to-week basis here on the Let's Get Growing show. Also, too, I mentioned just a little bit earlier that we do have our monthly gardening book club coming up here, third Sunday of this month. And this month we're featuring Willie Galloway's Veggies for Breakfast. So now here we go. We're going to talk about some blue zones and some things you can do to improve your health, improve your diet, get some of those things that you're growing in your garden into the most important meal of the day, into your breakfast. And we'll talk all about that with Willie Galloway, who's written some really great gardening books and all of that. But this is just a really great cookbook in general, more so than we've done before, as I mentioned. So definitely come and check out that conversation. Plus, we're back here again tomorrow night. Like I said, tomorrow night, it's our third green room. It's the green room with me and Natalie. Natalie from the Fresh Prince joins us as co-host for this really fun new conversation we're having here on the Let's Get Growing show in the Urban Gardener channel. And tomorrow night, we've got joining with us our new trivia contributor for our Saturday show. Brandy from the Suburban Gardenista will be with us, along with Michael Overstreet from the Garden Nerd. It's going to be fun. This is going to be, like I said, this is a new, and we're really getting to kind of what our formats really is for this show. A nice roundtable conversation between all of us, and a good chance for us to get some folks who've been on our show before back in for more really fun conversations all around gardening. And if you want to come and join with us next weekend, this is where we know about what we're going to do next weekend. We've got some really great shows. We still got more people lining up and all of that coming up this next weekend, though. Next Saturday, we're going to have Gary Pilarczyk joining us from the Rusted Garden. And as it is right now, too, we're also probably going to have joining with us, hopefully, and I just got to get out and get this confirmed or not. But what we'll do is we'll try to see if we can get our sponsor, Charles, over and talk all about his annual fruit and plant tree giveaway that they have each and every February there at Ivy Organic. So we'll talk all about that and get you guys in and on the information to get some of those free giveaways from our sponsor, Ivy Organic. And again, too, you can also go down to the link below in the description to Ivy Organic as well, and get some information about that if you want to jump right in and get into that giveaway as soon as possible. Also, too, next Sunday, the next Sunday edition is our second Sunday of the month, and that means we're going to have with us our good friend Gardner Scott joining with us. Scott Wilson from the Gardner Scott channel joins with us every second Sunday of the month for Ask Gardner Scott, where he answers all of your gardening questions. So if you got things going on, got some questions, or got something you're wanting to know a little bit more about, and you want to get the good info, and I'm talking about the good info, come and join with us next Sunday when we have our good friend Gardner Scott joining with us to answer all of your garden questions. And then next Monday night for the Green Room, we're going to have joining with us Andre the Farmer and Gardening with Gray. They'll be back on the Let's Get Growing show for our for another episode of the Green Room with Natalie and I coming up next Monday as well. We got lots and lots going on around here on the Let's Get Growing show. As always, like I said, come and join with us every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and now at the Green Room on Mondays at 5 p.m. That's right. This is your 3-day gardening talk weekend right here on the Let's Get Growing show. So I hope to see all of you there. And if you can, before you all head out today, again, let's follow all those links down below. Let's go check out Dr. Jeff and his, like I said, he's got the Instagram there. You guys go on that there. Go leave him some comments. Go let him know you saw him here on the Let's Get Growing show. And then again, too, his telehealth link is down there as well, too, if you're looking to get some good medical advice from some great doctors. So right on. Again, thank you all so much for being here today. I look forward to seeing all of you for tomorrow night's Green Room, along with Brandy and Michael and Natalie, our co-host. Going to be a great show. You're not going to want to miss out. I'll see all of you then.
Take the run. See you on the flippy flops.